this Sunday, something interesting happened to a good friend of mine.
Yes.
He'd been to Costco. He's loading up his car. It's kind of a heavier set guy,
Hmm.
eating his hot dog, and some guy's impatiently waiting for the parking spot for him to clear out.
Yeah.
And he's not, he's taking his time. He's 67 years old. He's just
Yeah.
being careful.
Right.
So the guy finds another spot, comes back. My friend's got his window open. He grabs his sunglasses, throws them on the ground. My friend gets out, and before anything can happen, the guy beats up on him.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
Puts him
wow.
in the hospital. No broken bones, hemorrhage in the right eye.
Oh,
Uh, Others, when he went to go leave the place, others blocked his car in, and he ran. So the police eventually found him and arrested him on felony battery, charged him with felony battery. They'd
sure.
impounded his car. My friend spent 6 hours in the hospital, had a CAT scan and dozens of X-rays,
All over a parking.
all over a parking spot.
Yeah, let's talk about that because I remember just seeing on the news uh, this foster care kid that was killed on the New York subway.
Yep.
So, he was in a chokehold and people were around. So, of
That
course,
was
they're trying to
another one.
make it a black and white thing. But I think it goes beyond that for me. Like what I saw in that video was that the Marine that had this guy in a chokehold that has mental health problems. But there were people standing around, and at some point, he was in a chokehold for 14 minutes.
Yeah, no. And right.
So this extremism kind of behavior, we're seeing a lot of it. And I keep seeing these like horrible mental health statistics, especially with young people, where they can go from bliss to piss in like mock seconds. It's ridiculous. So we really need to talk about the tension management aspect of these kinds of responses that people are going. The shootings were an example of that. You get shot for ringing the wrong doorbell, shot for driving in the wrong
Wrong
driveway.
driveway. Right. Well, and even on a
And I just read something about a man killing a young girl who was playing hide and seek in his yard.
Yep. Shot it, just shot, and she didn't die, but unless she died from her injuries. But yeah, you're right. He was out there just indiscriminately shooting at these kids playing hide and seek. And yeah, wow.
But it seems to be something awry with our capacity to, the cornerstone of emotional intelligence is always this idea of self-awareness. So
Yeah.
it's not enough to be able to have an emotion. You have to be able to effectively direct it, right? And harness it in a way so that you're certainly not harmful to yourself or harmful for others. But if we look across the board, that seems to be missing on top of critical thinking and those kinds of things, like what's going on. And so you just see like these extremism kinds of behaviors, like what Shags described.
Yep.
I had to come back to Central America because the team was literally about to fall apart, over a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And they were like yelling at each other, like fighting. And I tried to come in, calm the storm. And then they're yelling at me because I don't yell. Like, you don't seem like you're emotional about it or you're passionate.
Right. That doesn't help.
What?
Right. Well, let's kind
I
of
don't yell.
Yeah, let's expand this kind of category though, and if we can set aside the actions that ultimately become criminal, there are countless examples, and you can find videos on YouTube to show this about behavior from Karens and Kens or whatever they decide to call the male equivalent of a Karen, right? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so it's this
Yes.
thing where
Yes.
one person feels very empowered and entitled to go out there and step into somebody else's life, and they end up saying and doing things that are neither useful nor however else you want to characterize it. It's just a lot of it seems insane. And I think that's what Brian is getting to, is that has something gone on the mental health side of things that is either creating more of these situations, or is something happening that is simply allowing more of these situations to become evidenced in reality as opposed to just crazy thoughts in someone's head? if you know what I mean. You know, there's been crazies have been around for a very long time. It's
Right.
this level of expression of the craziness that is, I think, what's really changing.
Plus, on the social media aspect of, you know, the news feeds is 24/7, so you can see more of it seemingly, you know, on demand. And so
Right.
it seems like this stuff is just going on, going on, going on every day. I get pings on it. So I'm like, okay, is the world like going crazy, or is it like me just seeing this? And I had to stop, just turn off notifications. I
Yeah.
don't watch the news in general, but I
Yeah.
read. But I just stopped turning that off now because it seemed like it's just everything that's coming through now is this extreme behavior, and it seems like they're wanting to cover that, and you don't know anything else.
Right. And so they tend to feed um, people a certain kind of what do I say, food that ends up growing the problem. You know, because if it takes
Yes.
showing you a video of craziness happening in order to capture your attention, we know that over the course of time, natural movement on the change grid is what direction? That's a question for all of you. Over a period of time,
Down.
movement on the
Down.
change grid is down grid. That would mean that the situations that cause us stress today could end up feeling commonplace down the road and not even capture any of our attention whatsoever further down the road.
Mm.
Is that making sense?
See,
Yep.
I feel like things have changed and stress seems to go up grid now instead of overtime going down.
Hmm.
Okay, tell us more about that. The stress, I guess we have to think
It
about
just seems that
who in the drama are you noticing that's going further up grid now, and who are you you know, are there people that aren't going down grid? So that this is the thing, because I think you're onto a point worth looking at in terms of tension management. What happens when the whole world goes crazy?
Mm.
You know,
that's kind of what I was thinking, because this is I know this word's being overused, but it's unprecedented that the country seems to be moving up grid.
And interestingly, someone said that to me um, in a meeting. They said, "Yeah, you're in the United States," and it seemed like the United States is going backwards
mhm.
because even the news they hear on an international level coming out to United States is you know, again, it's extreme. I shared with them this site that I visit. It's called Human Progress. So this researcher said, you see all this doom and gloom, but in fact, he keeps data on the progress that humanity has. And I'm like, what? This is the kind of stuff we should hear about.
That's
But
right.
but we don't.
So all right, so let's see if we can pull this a little bit onto the change grid. Does anyone have something they want to throw in? I saw Edie, you had unmuted, but you're muted again. Anybody else want to throw anything in before we
Unmute. Okay.
There you are.
Am I unmuted? Am
You
I
are.
unmuted?
You are.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I totally agree with Linda. I mean, it's just like we're all in our reptilian brain. It's all reactive, not proactive. And Brian, you know, and I guess when I was putting together my TED talk, I learned so much that it's repulsive. But literally, IQs have gone down just between
Mhm.
1975 and 2000, 13.7, but they've gone down more rapidly in the last 2, 3 years. So we've gone down probably 15, 16 points. And if we go down another 15 points, we are borderline functioning as a society. I mean, this is really serious. And I think, Brian, I was kind of surprised what you were kind of puzzled by, because I think it's all the short circuiting in the brain. And so, yeah, critical thinking is not even part of it. If we don't use it, we lose it. And we've lost it. We have lost critical thinking. Don't
Yeah,
you think? I just think
yeah.
that we've
I think we kind of
restructured our brains.
we lost like our capacity to kind of interact with our environment. I think that's what's so surprising to me because to
Wow.
Edie's point, IQs are going down at a rapid rate. Where attention spans, we're losing it. Male fertility is going downward. And I can cite all these different things. And I was just looking at stats just yesterday that were citing how males are, I think, 5 or 6 times more likely to die before women. And they were citing all the various things, like they go to the doctors less, um, they they're more taking more risk, all these various things. And I was like, well, we haven't seen this in a while like this. The scales tip that far. So it seems like we're losing that groundedness, this centeredness, and not understanding human innovation. And but yet everyone can, like point to innovation with technology. So we seem to be like losing something, like something is lost.
Well, it kind of makes you wonder, what is the longest living species that has remained virtually unchanged for the longest period of time?
Cockroach.
I'm
Cockroaches.
thinking it's the cockroach, but as far as you know, the 99.999% of other species, sooner or later, they came to their demise because of something changed in the environment or something changed within them. And I remember one of the early indicators was the birth rate. So at a certain period of time, a species knows when the environment is no longer suitable to bring children into. And so without giving any conscious thought to it whatsoever, the species starts to feel less and less compelled to procreate. And so you kind of wonder, are we just looking at the ultimate demise of humanity as we know it? Why would we think that we should
I
be?
certainly hope so.
Yeah, there you go. But why would we want to think for one moment that because we're humans, we're going to be here for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years? You know, it's just not the case. Species just don't
There
survive.
was a lot of stuff before we came. There'll be a lot of stuff after we're gone.
Absolutely. That's what they're always talking about. Save
Nature doesn't care.
Save the planet. It's like the planet's okay. The planet will be just fine once we're gon. So,
But will we survive, T? Will we? Because you got to look at what Hawking said and Elon Musk, who invested in, AI and said, geez, I'm sorry. And the guy that just, the Google guy, what's his name, that just said, I can't do this anymore. I think we've created a monster that'll destroy us. I think we're at a real tipping point. And I want to tell you one other thing. I have grandkids that are soon to get married, maybe, and they have no desire to have children. They are making a conscious choice not to bring children into the world as it is.
Yep.
A lot of people like that.
We're hearing that more
birth
and more
rates
and more.
are down. So birth rates are down as well. That was one of those other statistics.
And you guys know, in the world of economics, what happens when the population of a country shrinks?
Right.
At a certain point, what happens to its ability to produce the goods that keeps the country working or whatever? So if we have shrinking populations, and it's not just in the US, I think there's lots of examples worldwide.
It's worldwide.
People are just kind of at the point going like, do I really want to bring another human being into this reality? And I think a lot are deciding no. Well, when the population gets small, you guys can look it up. I'm not an economist by any shadow of a stretch of the imagination, but one of the things I had heard was that when the population shrinks, then the gross national product shrinks. And sooner or later, everything we have in place starts to collapse.
Industry shrinks. That's what we've been looking at in terms of healthcare, right? So to your point, it's a worldwide issue. You already have aging populations, like Japan's is 10 times worse than the US. There's a shortage of physicians. There's shortage of phisians in the US.
And Canada.
And Canada,
Canada,
exactly. It's bad. And so it creates a compound effect in terms of its impact on the collective society.
Right.
Well, and you younger people have to worry. You're not going to get a Social Security check.
Younger people, I think all of us on this call are pretty much in the same boat. Brian,
okay. I'm going to be okay. But
yeah. So I think the thing too is that if society as we know it is going to collapse, then you can imagine we're going to be going into some kind of like a real survival kind of mode. And so you'd better live near a source of fresh water. You'd better be able to grow your own plants, and it'd be good to have someone who can hunt. So, we got to get back to some more simple ways of living, or we're going to have no choice but to have a simpler way of living.
Right.
Yeah.
So are we going full circle, T? Look, I mean, we're going back to our roots in a way.
Well, yeah, all that science fiction stuff is holding true. I think
Yeah.
the whole point of a lot of science fiction things where they show the post-apocalyptic reality of life on the planet, they're just saying something can happen that can change life as you know it overnight. And if that happens, all of those early survival skills are going to become absolutely, critical in order for you to survive. So have you guys
So
seen,
in terms of human development, then how do we, I've been reading a lot about this impact in these various areas, and
yeah,
they talk about the world of AI and personalization. So this idea of creating experiences that bring people back together. So like, for instance, Japan, that the government itself said, okay, we had this aging crisis. We know it's bad. Demographics are disconnected. You know, the women there, from one researcher said, like bra sizes are bigger because of these fast foods and all this
yeah,
just
yeah,
changes that they're
artificial
taking
estrogen.
on.
Yeah, yep, yep.
And so they started now this called Japan 5.0 Society that the government is funding. And this 5.0 society says, okay, we have technology, we have demographic, we have human innovation. How do we bring people, science, and technology together so that they can take care of one another? So we move from agricultural to information age. This 5.0 is all about community. They literally have the government focused on that. So these private-public partnerships, these ideas of building products that cultivate experiences. This is a very strategic thing that they're doing. The Japan, and I remember learning about shakunin, and shakunin is master craftsman. So everything they do has a special kind of apprenticeship to it.
Yep.
So they're going back to the drawing board in terms of making sure that people understand, okay, technology may be moving us faster than our capacity to keep up, but
Absolutely.
we have to take responsibility for our humanity. We have to take responsibility for each other.
Right. And unfortunately, we're going to need to have that evolution occur among a much larger percentage of the population than we're even close to. So this could end up being nothing more than the it could be the right answer for sure, but if it isn't deployed broadly enough, if it isn't embraced by enough people, it really is all for nothing. So now, let's go back in our own history to like the Dark Ages. Does anyone know enough about the Dark Ages to tell us what triggered the Dark Ages and what was lost and how did we get back to enlightenment? Anyone remember that part of history?
No.
I don't. All I know is that if you look at the timeline, even when we were developing, you guys know in in ChangeWorks, we went back through all of history that we could to find all these different models of human behavior, and they went back to a couple of thousand years ago. We could still find some sort of models, but there was a period of time of about 400 years where nothing was either done or nothing was documented, and that ends up being the Dark Ages. So for whatever reason, all of the modern miracles that the Roman societies and other societies had created, all these amazing libraries and aqueduct systems and roadways and on and on and on, this stuff just basically fell by the wayside, and people moved into a period of real darkness and all the things that came along with that. So what's to say that we're just not looking at another dark ages coming our way? Maybe we need to have a hard reset. And I'll tell you the one thing that would do it overnight is if we lost electricity.
Mm.
So if for whatever reason electricity just kind of went away, yeah, then what are we going to do? Think about in your own life how dependent you are on electricity. Yeah. So take that away. What are you going to do? How are you going to eat?
Yeah.
How are you going to, any of it? And people go like, well, our cars would still work because, they run on gasoline.
How are you going to pump a gas?
Exactly. How are you going to pump the gas? And how's the gas going to get to it? And that. And then I remember that someone said that about nuclear war, and that they said that if someone was really going to attack someone with nuclear weapons, the first thing they would do is send nuclear weapons that would explode over land, not on the land. They wouldn't hit the ground, but they would be detonated in the atmosphere. Do you know why that is?
It would scramble the electronics,
It scrambles electronics. It fries electronics.
fries the wires.
It fries the wires. It's all something that now there's no electricity. The next bomb will get you, but even if the next bomb doesn't come, that the recovery from one of those electromagnetic disruptions, it doesn't happen in the next 10 minutes. It could be years because of the things that have to be replaced to do that. So we can lose electricity from our reality very, very, very quickly. And if it does, we better be able to have a simpler life.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah. Today is a feel-good day in the world of.
Well, no, I think it's important to talk about this kind of thing because I always look at things from the perspective of like, for myself, like what can I do in terms of at least ushering in a conversation that gets people centered. I'm always looking for ways of the application of change grid because, as I said yesterday, it's like really in depth. I always feel like I need more training and learning on it.
Right.
And at scale, since I'm traveling so much and seeing these different scenarios happen at scale, this is kind of like a return trip to me because I grew up with this, seeing this when my father worked with World Health Organization, seeing this grow up in health disparities and inequities in all these different countries, and I'm like, are we? And when I hear things like we're going backwards, I start to really think about that. Are we going backwards? But then I remember that there's always these upheavals right before things kind of level off somewhere.
Yep. I mean, some
That-
percentage of the population would survive no matter what. I mean, that
Right.
seems to just be the way the math would work out.
The cockroaches.
Yeah, look at the cockroaches. They seem to be doing fine for themselves. You don't read stories about cockroach war. So yeah, so I think this is all very, very fascinating, but because we're talking about human behavior, a human dynamic, something like that, it should rather easily overlay on the change grid to help us understand what's really going on. And so give me a couple of minutes to just review with you guys. Are you seeing this radial trend diagram on the screen?
You have something in the way there,
Yeah, there's something covering it, Key.
like a table or something.
Your critical PDFs folder.
Really? How weird is that? All right,
And you've been looking for it for 10 years, huh?
yeah, well, what I don't understand is, all right, right now I'm going to say share screen. The screen I want to share is desktop number 2. Share. Now are you looking at radial trends?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I got this little alert that just said that my external display had lost the connection. So I don't know I'm not going to touch anything for fear it's going to disconnect again. But this idea about radial trends on the change grid just says that there's certain characteristics about human behavior that are going to be very true at one of the poles, and the opposite is going to be very true at the other pole. So the purple dot, think of that as the North Pole, if you will. And you should all know that if we stretch the change grid around the ball, those 4 red spots actually end up being the exact same spot. So those are the powerless point. That would be at the South Pole. And so we want to kind of look at what's happening as we work our way radially from the center of the change grid. Now, there's at least 5 different attributes that we are looking at on this layer. So let me just quickly introduce you to these, and then we can see where does this whole Karen behavior or Kevin behavior or whatever come from? Why are people being more brash in their way of interacting with one another? Where is this all coming from? So orientation just says that people in any given moment can be very information oriented, very other oriented, or very self-oriented. So if you're self-oriented, what are you concerned about? What are you focused on? You, just you. If you are other oriented, what are you focused on?
Others.
And if you're information oriented, see, this really is easy. If
I
you're
always see the same hands.
yeah, there it is. It's all about just the facts. Now, one
So
of the
that's may I ask a quick question? So
Uh-huh.
like what you just described, does that like line up with the what do you call the energies? Like other will be amiable kind of thing?
No. We're going to watch how this one changes as we move around. This actually came from neurolinguistic programming, talking about the meta programs. So the programs that we all run as humans to figure out where we're directing our attention. And one of those programs is, are we at that moment in time focused more on ourselves, on others, or on just the information?
Oh,
And it can change depending on the situation. Well, the moment they use those words, my head goes, well, then it overlays on the change grid. So let's see how this orientation actually plays out. Now, if we go to the exact center of the change grid inside of the green circle, you'll see that this orientation possibility, it has self/other/information. What we mean is that when someone is at this moderate level of productive tension, they're able to balance out and appreciate, utilize, recognize all of those different vantage points or all those different orientations at once. That's not from NLP. That's something that came out of integrating this with the change grid. So when you're at your very best, you have an ability to appreciate a situation from your personal experience of it and how it impacts you personally. Simultaneously, you can see how it impacts others around you, and you're able to see the facts for what they are. Does that sound like a pretty good place to be?
yes. That's exactly why it's in the middle.
That's why it's in the middle. Now, as we move away from the center, as we move beyond that green circle, something is shed. And what is shed is the information orientation. So between the green and the red circle, you're going to become less interested in the facts at hand, and you're instead going to be out there busy doing something. On the outgrid side of things, it might be that you feel as though you've already got enough information. You don't need to have all of the information. You don't need to keep being a student or anything. You've got enough. So let's move forward. Let's move forward. I'm getting a lot of background sound. So if you guys want to mute unless you're throwing something in, please go ahead and mute your line. Now between the green and the red, you can be both self-oriented and other-oriented. All right, give me just 1 second. It's kind of driving me crazy. Just one moment. La la la, participants. Muting this one. No, muting this one. Oh,
Yeah, that's the one.
okay, good. Quiet. Thank you. All right. So between the green circle and the red circle, you might have set aside the information, but now you really are even more focused on just how whatever it is that's going on is going to affect yourself and others. But as you move beyond the red circle, the care consideration you have for others is also going to be shed, and you're going to end up being fully self-oriented. So we view it as being something that is more additive and subtractive. As your level of drive increases, or as the level of tension increases, you're going to find that whole logic, that whole information orientation is going to start to fall down a little bit, and things are going to change. Can you guys, does that make sense? Can you resonate with that? Is that feeling?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that. Is there a way to hold those 3 as you move out, or is this a natural thing that you start
No.
to lose those?
No, you don't, yeah, unless we discover some model that helps us to come to the belief that the green circle can expand to encompass a larger area of the change grid. I would say to you, no, we all exist on a continuum, but it's a continuum in 360 degrees. And so from the center, depending on what direction we're moving, something's going to give. And that's what ends up happening. So is it possible for us to have this full range of perceptions and still be where we're talking here? I don't think so, but let's do a deeper look at these radial patterns and see if we can find some room for that to be a possibility. So, so basically we'd be saying that when you view your ability as being moderate and the challenge as being moderate, you're going to be able to appreciate how things are going to affect yourself, others around you, and an appreciation for the information as well. In the center of the change grid, reasoning is logically oriented, full logic. There's very little, what I want to say, there's very little passion in the center of the change grid. There's a very clean logic, and maybe the emotion would be those emotions of pride, which really don't get a lot of attention if you're genuinely there, because when you're genuinely there, you don't need to feel much of anything. Your attention isn't going to how you're feeling. Your attention your energy is still about you feel good, you feel confident, you feel balanced, you feel capable. All these sorts of things allow you to say that because I feel that way, I can focus on the logic part. I can observe what's going on with other people and the information and on and on. So the emotions might become very secondary though, but it is built of those emotions that are helping us to see that we're just fine, but we've got things to notice and perhaps work to do. As far as harmony is concerned, we just say that your world, your life in any given moment can or exists on a continuum between peaceful and disturbed. And so when you're the center of the change grid, we already know this is a place of peace and harmony and all those good sorts of feelings. And the last one's functional, function versus dysfunction. So dysfunction just means that you are not making the absolute best decisions in all circumstances. It's just not happening. There are errors that are being made in the way you're thinking and acting, and those ends up falling into the category of dysfunctional behaviors, dysfunctional thoughts, dysfunctional choices, dysfunctional reasoning, etc. So in the middle of the grid, you are balanced in your orientation, logical, have that foundation of pride, you feel peaceful, and you're very functional. Isn't that a good place to be?
Yes.
Yeah, but we did say that life is not really lived there. Here we're in a place of great observation. We can see what's going on, where everyone is, all that good sort of stuff. But this isn't a place where growth is actually occurring. This is a place where our batteries get recharged. This is a place we might aspire to live. It might be a place that we seek out on a frequent basis via meditation or any kind of mindfulness, anything like that at all. So we generally want to find moments of this, but this is not where the activities of daily living come into play. So activities of daily living occur between the green and the red circle. Maybe there's a puzzle that needs to be sorted out, a problem that needs to be solved, an opportunity that needs to be pursued, needs that have to be addressed. Maybe there's something about settling, harmonizing, preparing, understanding, documenting whatever's going on over here on the in-grid side. It might be about caring for others, family time, developmental sorts of things for people who are ultimately not ready to or may never be ready to. So life is lived between the green and the red circle. And we can go all the way around it and come up with specific examples of the elements of life, aspects of life, experiences of life that we might find in these different areas within the green and the red circle. Okay.
Now this makes good sense. I like this, Leah, because I can see myself in this and what I depend on to be functional and not dysfunction.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, I often go back into, so I'm in between the green and the red when I'm doing and organized, but I cultivate that green circle.
Right.
throughout the day, and I notice the difference when I don't.
Yeah, and when you went down to, where were you? Not Venezuela. Where were you?
And Guatemala
In
at that
Yeah.
time. Yeah,
All right. So, and you were walking into a dysfunctional situation.
yeah.
You were saying people were at odds with one another, and stuff that needed to be happening wasn't really happening. Obviously, there was some degree of dysfunction going on. If we go outgrid because you guys were there to do something, they might not have been able to see or utilize the information so much. So it was all just about self and others, me versus them, or me trying to take care of them, and on and on. Yeah, I'm still got a good bit of logic going on, but I'm getting an equal contribution of emotional sorts of things in my head. So this is where people might have started to become a little bit on the overconfident side, a bit arrogant. They might have been exercising their authority in a more outward way, trying to control others' behavior. So there could be this logical and emotional blend going on, but that's bouncing between two different areas of your brain, and everybody else who's involved in the drama, they're bouncing between these two very different of your brains. Unless you guys are going to tell me that according to brain physiology, there is actually a separate area of the brain that is equally balanced in logic and emotion. Right. I've never heard anyone say that. They've always
No,
said, you go into one part of your brain, it's logic. You go to another part of your brain, that's where the emotion is. And we might be bouncing back and forth between them with such rapid speed that it feels like they're happening at the same time in the same place. But are they?
they kind of inform one another. Like, the brain operates as one
Yeah.
unique integrated system within systems within systems. So they inform one another, but it's too easy to be overwhelmed by one,
Yeah. And that's why
like be emotionally ruled like you have here,
yep. And
as
so
opposed
the
to
brain
reason.
knows. The brain knows
Exactly.
to keep these things separate, because
Yeah.
when you
Because all
tangle
about
them
the
too much.
energy.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
all about the energy.
And so these people that are slightly out grid are experiencing a disturbed peace. They are peaceful. They feel pretty comfortable, but they also know something's not quite right. There's work to be done. And yeah, there's a lot of functional stuff that's going on, but there's also mistakes that are being made along the way, discoveries that are being made, accidents that are occurring as we're trying to figure out how to do something. So don't view this as being negative at all. This is also very much about the growth process. Again, I'm outgrid. I'm a driver. I'm trying to get something accomplished. So should it in any way surprise you that as I'm working towards making that happen, my focus is on myself and others. I am being logical, but my emotions are also there driving me. I am feeling pride, but there's not so much shame in its most expressed form as much as there is this thought that I got to go out there and make this work because I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to let anybody down. I don't want to, be the one who gets pointed at for whatever doesn't help it. So it might be more about the avoidance of shame, but nevertheless, there's that thought that this may not turn out the way I really want it to, so I better pay really close attention. So they might already know they're on the right track and doing a lot of the right things, and they did their homework, but still there's this disturbance that we're feeling because it isn't quite there yet. So I have the intention, I am engaged, but I'm not done. And so there is this disturbed element that could be messing up your peace. And yeah, a lot of the stuff and you can do it really, really well, but there's going to be elements you're going to stumble across along the way where you go like, ooh, hadn't thought about that, or whatever. And now you got to figure that out, or you got to pretend it doesn't matter. So could you guys feel that this could actually be a very positive place to be on the grid if I'm trying to go out there and do something, trying out there to make something happen? Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, that's the saving grace for me, I think, is this idea that I'm a learner and like to learn because I value quality over quantity. So I'm not necessarily the fastest one out the gate, but it takes time. And so when these guys are coming to me for answers and I'm taking my time, looking at things from this analytical perspective, and they
Yeah.
wanted me to rush, I feel like my peace is disturbed at that moment. And
Yep.
that's where things get kind of go awry if I don't know to go back inward to get centered and come
Yeah, you got
back
to
with
get
the
recentered
response.
to come back and do it, because
Yeah.
this is a thing. And by the way, those of us that are working with others in this human development capacity, it is we're trying to help them build on their strengths, um, that they're logical and proud, and but that they've also got these I'm going to say challenges, maybe they're roadblocks, maybe issues that we need to help them to grow through, and that's going to help them get all the way out there. However, if they end up in the danger zone outside of the red circle, orientation now becomes self-oriented, reasoning becomes emotionally ruled. There is some element of toxic shame or such a fear of the shame arriving that you become focused more on avoiding the shame, pretending that you've made no mistakes. Remember, I say this is where the world of narcissism lives. Their harmony, as much as they want to make it sound and look like they're on top of the world, they're very disturbed. And there's tremendous amounts of dysfunction being found in that danger zone. So I hope that this layer helps you to recognize that when we are at our very best and we're inside this green circle, we're going to have to shed some of these qualities as we go out here and encounter people in different areas of the change grid, et cetera. Now, you'll notice the list of 5 things between the green and the red are identical at all 4 of the locations: outgrid, upgrid, ingrid, and downgrid. But if we start to come up with examples of how these things would hold true, they're going to change based on, are they outgrid examples? Because those are different than upgrid examples. For example, if we would look at orientation, if you are in a situation that is truly, truly life and death, well, as the issue starts to arise, you're going to be more self and other oriented. So your protective capabilities are still going to be there. But at a certain point in time, unless you are talking about, I'm going to say that things like parental bonds between parents and their children override this. Because I think that parents are more likely to sacrifice themselves in order to save their children than throw their children under the bus to save themselves. Yeah, I think that's fair for us to say for most cases. On the other hand, if I'm just around the general public and a tsunami wave comes into the beach area, well, first I'm going to see what I can do to help myself, help other people. I'm going to be there. But as the situation becomes more and more dire, what do you think you're going to do? Sacrifice yourself or try to protect yourself?
Yeah, you got to protect yourself.
Right. And because look, you're in the upgrade danger zone. The upgrade danger zone is all about survival, and your instincts are going to keep in. And as much as you'd like to say emotionally that you would rather sacrifice yourself and save others, your brain is fully focused on making sure that one person survives. So who does your brain want to survive?
You.
You. And at a certain point in time, your brain is simply going to take over. So and a great example of this is, there's lots of ways that people can end their own lives. One of the ways that you cannot end your own life is to kneel alongside the side of a bathtub and shove your head underwater. So you are not going to drown. Your brain is going to intervene at a certain point, and you are going to pull your head out of the water. Now, if you give yourself lots of drugs and alcohol, that might increase the chances that your brain won't be able to do what it needs to do. But that's it. No one's going to die by sticking their head into an electric oven. I mean, they could break their brain, obviously, but that whole thing about people turning on the gas, well, it's because the gas is in the air. You're going to inhale it. It's going to distort things. But I promise you, if you think you can drown yourself by kneeling by the side of a bathtub and shoving your head underwater, no.
Just got to do some good pharmaceuticals, fall asleep and drown.
Well, this is exactly right. In which case, now there's another element that is, what do we say, interfering with your brain being able to do the intervention it needs to do.
It happened to Whitney Houston, and it happened to Backstreet Boys' younger brother.
Oh, yeah. What now? Because he also had a lot of drugs in his system, right?
Yeah, he did.
Because I know stories of a lot of people.
Nick Carter.
Yeah, Nick Carter.
Aaron Carter.
You're just in, you're in a bathtub and you're having some glasses of wine, and unfortunately it's too much and you're going to slip under the water. Well, that's a very different thing. It was really the alcohol or the drug or the combination that is interfering with your brain's self-protective.
Yeah, it's an unconscious
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah, you lost consciousness, and so
Feeling.
there it goes. Yeah. So my point is that if you're going to be this far up grid, it's going to express itself. Different situations are going to be able to be described that would fall more up grid, in grid, down grid, etc. But what I would say, the structure ends up being the same. So regardless of which danger zone you're in, you're going to end up self-oriented. You're going to end up emotionally ruled. You're going to end up experiencing or avoiding toxic shame. You're going to be disturbed. You're going to be dysfunctional. That's what happens when you're in these danger zones. And again, remember, it's not like there's 4 separate ones. There's just 4 different directions to come at the same powerless point from. So you're still in a very profoundly difficult thing. So it's the top of our hour, but I wanted to put all this out there to say to you, when these Karen types or these crazy people who wanted a stupid parking place end up behaving the way they're behaving, do you think you're hearing someone who's inside of the green circle?
No.
No,
Oh,
Are they even between the green and the red?
no.
No, they're in a danger zone of some sort. And so maybe some of these situations we've talked about or we could find are going to be great examples of the outgrid danger zone, stepping into action. These people tend to be very aggressive, very direct, very warmongering is one of the the adjectives that falls there. But they tend to be bossy and belligerent, and they're ready to fight. And because they don't believe that the rules apply to them, they're likely to do things like pull out a weapon or physically attack another person because they think they can get away with it. That they're entitled to do these kinds of things because somehow or another they're special. Well, if I'm in an upgrid danger zone kind of thing, I really am in a threatened situation. So that's a different behavior set. So although they want to, I love it when you're watching these videos of these Karens in action, that after them stirring up all the trouble they did outgrid, they decide to say, and they're threatening me, and and I don't feel safe around them, and blah, blah, blah. It's all them trying to pretend that they are upgrid or present themselves as being upgrid, truly under threat. But it really is just a manipulation of the authorities to try to get them to show up ready to view the actual victim as being the perpetrator.
Right.
Not the other
Yeah.
way around. So
This is fascinating. How do you use this in which program did you use this particular layer a lot? Like, is it pride-based leadership or one of the other
Well,
programs?
I would probably bring it up in pride-based leadership if I wanted to present it to a regular audience, but I would say more often than not, this is just something we share with professionals. Because then they can understand, yesterday on the Oracle of the Self call, we were talking about how each of the danger zones are very prone to addictions. But what addiction to what? So what type of alcohol, what type of drug, what type of process might they be addicted to? And so I gave it to them as homework, so, and if you guys are on that call, then forget what I'm saying here. But if you're in the outgrid danger zone, your alcohol of choice is going to be something top shelf because you're trying to prove something to somebody, not least of whom is yourself, that you are somehow grand and worthy and entitled. And so you're going to pay top dollar for things that are seemingly premium, even if their premium status is nothing more than the result of marketing and not because of the actual quality that thing has. When it comes to drugs, they want something that's going to empower them and give them more energy. So this is the domain of cocaine. So something like that. When it comes to addictive behaviors, these are the gamblers. These are the people who their sex addiction is more about becoming the predator or whatever. So conquering somebody else, just to have another notch in their bedpost. That's what it's really driven kind of through. And you could look. These are the thrill seekers, but we'll find thrill-seeking behavior a little along this whole continuum. But yeah, thrill-seeking behaviors, risk orientation, big gambles, big threats, fights, etc. These are the kinds of things that people out there can get very much addicted to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This is fascinating. I really like this layer.
Yeah, well, I think it helps us to understand a lot about what's going on, but to kind of bring this to closure, we're talking about what's happening to the world around us. when we watch the people around us move into danger zones, we all end up in danger. We may not be out there being one of the people that are representing these danger zones, but we live in a society. These people are going to impact our harmony. And they don't want, as much as they might say they want to be here, they recognize that it's a lot of work to get to the center and stay in the center. And so rather than try to aspire to reach the center, they instead aspire to destroy the center. And they destroy the center by, well, if they're out-grid danger zone, they could end up, how many wars started with the people of spiritual life being rounded up and massacred? You know,
Mhm.
they didn't want people to have hope, and they didn't want people to be objective observers. And they didn't want people to look at the facts and be logical and, you know, make things that threatens the people that are in the outgrid danger zone in particular. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, so it all becomes a dynamic, but that's what's happening when we're watching just individuals. I mean, for a while, we were seeing a lot of this in political behavior, and we still do see it in political behavior at a global level. But what about just people that are out there putting their nose into other people's business for no reason?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like, what's
I
that?
feel like for what Edie was talking about, you know, because I've always been involved with kids since my wife and daughter's accident. I think I want to get back involved. I haven't been just because I've been too busy. But the more I keep talking to younger people, it seems like they're looking at the world, they don't have the same kind of hope. Like their communication and everything. I was talking to this young guy flying over here, and he was telling me about his dating issues with dating online. And I'm talking to him and he can barely communicate. So I said, you know, I think it might be good to, you know, if you're trying to create a conversation with a female, to say more than what's up. You know, you
Yeah.
have to like, you know, actually communicate. He's like, that works for me. I'm like, yeah, but that's not gonna take it to the next stage, you know,
No,
but
no.
that's
Well,
it's
and
just
maybe it will take them to the next stage that it's able to lend things to, but what does that say about our society overall?
right, exactly.
So
Exactly.
that's why I do think, well, if you took all the world's leaders that are at odds with one another and said to them, for the next year, we're going to put you all out in the wilderness. We'll make sure you've got the basics. You guys have to figure things out. I would like to think that they're going to figure out ways to cooperate with one another and then maybe take those things back to their respective countries or whatever. It would make a really good movie, but I don't count on it ever happening.
Yeah.
You know, there you go. Yeah, the closest we're going to see is Lord of the Flies. Do you know
Yeah,
that movie?
exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
You know what you're saying though, Brian, is really the communication thing. With my Airbnbs, I will have people write and say, "Oh my God, you know, I want to stay there. This is the property of my whatever." But then I say, I prefer to have a chat. I want to hear their voice. They disappear. They will
Mm,
not verbally. They will text, but they do
yeah.
not want to reveal their voice, which reveals more about the person. It is
Mhm.
amazing to me that there
Mhm.
is an out, and it's a total block.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do we manage the world this way? I don't know.
no. But
And you know, seeing what you were talking about before, you know, the bathtub and stuff, is it more survival instinct, or is it more the aversion to pain that we lift our head and won't
yeah, you
go
know, because I've never actually tried doing it, I don't really know what the thought process is that happens. All I know is that this is me, your brain talking to you. See what happens when I let you have a conscious participation in your existence? So their brain is kind of going like, wait. You might want to die, but I'm going to survive. And
Mhm.
so it's like your brain basically takes charge of everything and says, you are pulling your head out from under from that water. And maybe it is just the fact that you quickly realize that drowning is a horrible way to go. So
Mhm.
yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I just know that
Seeing yourself is supposedly
yeah, well, you
awful.
know, I just know this. If our brain is first and foremost what do I say, designed to help us survive, then it's certainly not going to help us die.
No, no. Your survival instincts will kick in. Like if, for instance, you don't have to necessarily be trained to not go in the street. You already know that. Like the peripheral vision of something coming fast at you, you can
Yeah,
respond to it. You don't have to
right.
think about it.
You hear it long before you realize
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
Yeah, well, and I'm reminded about the work that I did in hospital settings. I worked at children's hospitals, so young people as well as a veterans hospital. So I was watching people of really all ages, but the elderly included. And a lot of times they'd end up on monitors, and they'd be pretty much in a comatose state or very unconscious about what's really going on. People that are getting close to their final moments. And you would think that their monitors would just show complexes that were getting lower and slower and on and on. And that does happen to a certain degree. But in the movies, it shows that it just suddenly goes flatline. That's not what happens.
No, it goes
Before
berserk.
it goes berserk. It's going all over the place. This person isn't even conscious. But what the brain is trying to do is put all the energy it has remaining into surviving. So that's why I kind of know at a certain point in time, your brain will take over.
Yep.
Yeah. So unless there's, as we said earlier, drugs, alcohol, whatever else involved, tying a gigantic, weight around your feet and jumping into the lake, well, your brain might go like, I can't do anything about that. So, yeah. Oh, well.
Well, there's only one last chance to say, oops.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
This was a mistake, but it'll be the last one I make.
That's right. Oops. Yeah. Oh, well, there you
That's funny.
All right,
Enjoy watching the news clip.
Yeah, I will. I thank you for sending that over to all of us. We'll check it out. And again, you guys, if you haven't seen Mrs. Adams, what's her name?
Davis.
Davis. Why do I keep
Davis.
thinking Adams? Because it's Adams family in my head. But Mrs. Davis, it's a very interesting thing to watch. And I won't give anything away at all, but I'll tell you that in the first few minutes of the show, you're going to see something, and then like little if any reference is going to be made to it for a while. You kind of go like, what the hell was all that? Where'd that come from? Well, who is she? And so it's from the very beginning of it, there's something very captivating in the storyline. So Shags, you agree with that?
Indeed.
Yeah. Linda, I think is as well.
Absolutely. It was just the first. We only watched the first one, but we were going to watch another one, but then we got caught up with the Warriors. They may be done soon.
Yeah. Well,
There's only so much time we have on TV.
Well, the moment you think you know what's going on, everything changes.
It does.
Yeah. So it's really good. It's really, really good. I think it's only 8 episodes total, so it's not any giant kind of commitment, but nevertheless.
Yeah, when T came home from his trip, I watched the first one over again with him. I had watched the first one to see if I thought it was something that we would like. And you really pick up a lot of things you missed just watching it the first time.
It's well done. It's very well done.
Watch it again.
Yep. Okay. All right. Talk to you guys next time. So thanks, everyone.
Okay,
Bye.
Have a good day, everybody. As I said, long live Gregor Samsa.
Yeah. Rest well.
The cockroach days.
Bye.